but the PDA5 inhibitors and the oral steroids, yeah, the potency and the bioavailability will significantly increase when you combine it with. Welcome to Vigorous Nutrition and Supplementation. I'm Coach Steve. Let's discuss how to get the most bioavailability out of your oral anabolic androgenic steroids. Now, this is not a protocol that I designed myself. It's actually been around since the golden era. So you see that a lot of old-time bodybuilders used to do this back in the day whenever they would take oral steroids, but it still holds practical applications today. It's still very valuable. And it's actually quite easy to incorporate whenever you decide to take oral steroids. And that is to combine half a red ruby grapefruit with your oral steroids to increase its bioavailability. Because some of the flavonoids which are found in red ruby grapefruits reduce drug metabolism. Now, I don't think anybody has ever made a video about this, or at least explain how this mechanism works. So don't worry, Coach Steve to the rescue. This video teaches you how this mechanism works and how you can incorporate it the next time you decide to take oral steroids. I'm not telling you to take oral steroids, but whenever you decide to do so by yourself, consider combining it with half a red ruby grapefruit, because it will tremendously increase the bioavailability, and now you get more bang for your buck for the amount of milligrams of oral steroids that you take. So how does it work? Well, red ruby grapefruit and any other citrus fruit contains naringin in the peel of the fruit, where it contributes to its bitter taste. So naringin is one of the flavonoids that contributes to the reduced drug metabolism. It's found in the highest concentrations in red ruby grapefruit, which also happen to be the most bitter of the citrus fruits out there. So you have pomelo, for example, orange, lemon, lime. Lemon and lime are, of course, very sour. Pomelo is a little bit bitter. And apparently, I think that grapefruits are derived from pomelo, or by combining pomelo with orange to increase, get a little bit of a different flavor profile, which resulted in a very high concentration of naringin in the peel. While naringenin is a colorless and flavorless flavonoid that is commonly found in high concentrations in grapefruit, bergamot, sour orange, cacao, tomatoes, and Greek oregano. Now, the ratios and the concentrations between naringin and naringenin vary greatly between these food sources, but generally speaking, the highest concentrations can be found in red ruby grapefruits, where it contributes to its very bitter taste and its very potent inhibitory effects on drug metabolism. Now, what is common practice in the food industry when they make grapefruit juice is that they add an enzyme called naringinase to metabolize naringin into naringenin and glucose. So this way, the bitter taste of the grapefruit or the grapefruit juice is reduced significantly, while increasing its glucose concentrations or its sugar content, making it a lot more palatable and easier to sell. And the human intestinal tract also has this enzyme, naringinase. So whenever you decide to consume a red ruby grapefruit with a very high concentration of naringin and naringenin, part of the naringin is metabolized into naringenin, which is highly beneficial. So you can take the red ruby grapefruit or drink the grapefruit juice, the pasteurized grapefruit juice. And that way you get a very high concentration of naringenin. And I believe the conversion of naringin into naringenin through the naringinase enzyme is about 10 to 15%. So even though you reduce the bioavailability of the naringin itself, you increase the bioavailability of naringenin, or the naringenin content of the red ruby grapefruit or the grapefruit juice. So this is highly beneficial because it's the naringenin that contributes to impaired drug metabolism the most. So how does the increased bioavailability of oral steroids when you combine them with half a red ruby grapefruit actually work? Well, naringin and naringenin both inhibit drug metabolizing cytochrome P450 enzymes, especially the CYP1A2, CYP3A4, and CYP3A5 variants. So by inhibiting these enzymes, there might even be some drug-drug interactions depending on which drugs or medications you take. So I'll put up a list right here so you can see which of these inhibitory effects on drug metabolism actually take place regarding certain medications. And I know your eyes are going straight to the PDA5 inhibitors. So yes, I'll confirm that for you. half a red ruby grapefruit containing a significant amount of naringin and naringenin, increases the effectiveness of Cialis, Viagra, and Levitra substantially. So you might need to reduce the dose because you don't want too much, stimulation down below, or you don't want too much reduction in blood pressure. Again, because, too low blood pressure isn't ideal either. So if you're taking Cialis, you might want half the dose before you incorporate half a red ruby grapefruit or some of the supplements that we'll discuss later in this video, because it will be significantly more potent. Now, most of the other medications we don't generally take in bodybuilding unless we're sick. So you don't really have to worry about the statin drugs or the anti-inflammatories or the antibiotics that are present in this list. But the PDA5 inhibitors and the oral steroids, the potency and the bioavailability will significantly increase when you combine it with red ruby grapefruits. The Cytochrome P450 enzymes mostly contribute to metabolism of lipids, cholesterol, and sex hormones, most notably testosterone or testosterone derivatives. So when you inhibit these enzymes with naringin or naringenin, you see that the bioavailability of oral steroids as well as injectable steroids is significantly increased. Now, by impairing the metabolism of lipids and cholesterol, you would expect to see skewed lipid concentrations on your blood work panel. But I've seen it with my blood work and blood work of a lot of my clients when they introduce red ruby grapefruit to their PED protocol, is that lipid concentrations and total cholesterol concentrations, or HDL and LDL concentrations, remain pretty much the same, even though serum concentrations of testosterone or other anabolic androgenic steroids, which you generally don't see in your blood work panel. You have to do a doping test to see if they're present in the bloodstream. But you see that those concentrations are significantly increased, but lipid concentrations are pretty much the same. So, of course, most of my clients are on citrus bergamot, even though naringenin is found in bergamot. I don't think it's found in citrus bergamot supplementation. The citrus bergamot supplementation has other flavonoids which contribute to a favorable HDL and LDL profile as well. And of course, most of my clients are on carnitine that keeps their triglyceride concentration under control as well. So I feel, based on the blood work that I've seen with myself and all of my clients, is that you don't have to worry about impaired lipid or cholesterol metabolism when you take red ruby grapefruits with your oral steroids or injectable steroids, because I didn't see any significant changes on the blood work results, even though serum concentrations of testosterone are, notably increased. I can't really put a percentage on it, but you usually see that it increases slightly. And especially the bioavailability of oral steroids are more pronounced, but of course, those you generally don't see on a blood work panel. Now, naringin has a half-life of about 7 to 8 hours, and naringenin has a relatively short half-life of 2 to 3 hours. So ideally, if you want to take a red ruby grapefruit containing a significant amount of naringenin, which contributes to the impaired drug metabolism the most, also considering that naringin metabolizes into naringenin in the intestinal tract with the naringinase enzymes, timing is, about an hour to 2 before the workout, which is usually favorable with your oral steroids as well. So now you have the highest possible serum concentrations of the oral steroids that you took before your pre-workout, giving the most bang for your buck and the most workout capacity and the most anabolic benefit post-workout, because again, naringin and naringenin, by impairing drug metabolism, extends their half-life. So now you don't need to dose, some of the oral steroids that have a reasonably long half-life. You don't have to dose those multiple times per day. Dosing them pre-workout with your red ruby grapefruit will suffice. So how much naringin or naringenin do we need to get this beneficial effect regarding impaired drug metabolism when we take oral anabolic androgenic steroids? Well, it's actually quite easy to deduct. When you look at the molecular weight of naringenin and compare that to testosterone or testosterone derivatives, you see that it's actually quite comparable. Naringenin has a molecular weight of about 272 grams per molar. Testosterone or testosterone derivatives hover around 288 grams per molar, and depending on the derivative, it might be a little bit higher or a little bit lower than 288 grams per molar. But naringin, which has a glucose attachment, has a much higher molecular weight of about 588 grams per molar. And I'll put that up here on the screen so you guys can follow along. So we're going to go with Naringenin here because that one has been shown to be the most potent regarding its inhibitory effects on the P450 enzymes. And when we look at it logically, you'll need one molecule of Naringenin to inhibit the metabolism of one molecule of testosterone or a testosterone derivative. So when you take 25 milligrams of Anavar, for example, per day, you'll need 25 milligrams of Naringenin to impair the metabolism of this Anavar. Because again, we're going by molecular weight, so it's very easy to deduct in a 1-to-1 ratio. 25 milligrams of Naringenin would impair the metabolism of 25 milligrams of Anavar, or 25 milligrams of Turinabol, or 25 milligrams of Dianabol, whatever oral you end up taking. You need it in a 1-to-1 ratio. Now, of course, red ruby grapefruits, a whole medium size, contains about 100 to 125 milligrams of Naringenin and Naringin. And I'm not exactly sure what the ratio is between Naringin and Naringenin within red ruby grapefruits. I wasn't able to find that. So let's assume it's a 1-to-1 ratio as well, 50% Naringin and 50% Naringenin. Half a red ruby grapefruit would contain about 50 to 65 milligrams of Naringin or Naringenin, resulting in about, let's say, 25 to 30 milligrams of Naringenin itself, if it's in a 1-to-1 ratio within red ruby grapefruits. Again, I can't find it, so I'm just guesstimating here. But that shows that half a red ruby grapefruit containing approximately 25 milligrams of Naringenin would prevent the metabolism of 25 milligrams of Anavar, 25 milligrams of Turinabol, 25 milligrams of halotestin, which is more than sufficient. Also considering that about 10 to 15% of Naringin metabolizes into Naringenin in the intestinal tract, because the intestinal tract also has these Naringinase enzymes. So you get even more bang for your buck. Now the problem is, everybody has dietary restrictions, right? And half a red ruby grapefruit also contains 8 grams of fructose. It's the end of the world. Well, I have a solution for you guys. Derek, for more plates, more dates, and his awesome Gorilla Mind supplements, created this CMP fat burner for the evening, which contains Naringin. 2 capsules contains 300 milligrams of Naringin. So that means 2 capsules of this one, considering that Naringin converts to Naringenin at about 10 to 15% when the Naringinase enzyme is present, 300 milligrams of Naringin would result in, yes, 30 to 45 milligrams of Naringenin. So if you take 2 capsules of this with up to 45 milligrams of oral steroids, you get a lot of inhibition and you get a lot more bang for your buck. And 2 tablets of this is probably a lot cheaper than half a red ruby grapefruit, or it's comparable to a quarter red ruby grapefruit, right? Because two tablets of the CMP PM fat burner has a little bit less Naringin contained within than half red ruby grapefruit. But even then, the serving size is considerably cheaper, especially if you live in Asia, where citrus fruits are not really affordable. If I were to buy a red ruby grapefruit, it would cost me $5. $5. So half a red ruby grapefruit is $2.50. I would still consider that worth it, but you know, when you compare the price to other performance-enhancing drugs, yeah, I think this is a much more suitable and a much more affordable approach. Now, the good thing about this supplement is that it also has hesperidin and forskolin. Hesperidin has been shown to act as an aromatase inhibitor, and forskolin has been shown to increase androgen receptor density and content on the cell membrane, so now you get even more bang for your buck. So let's say red ruby grapefruits are simply unaffordable, or your diet model doesn't allow for another 8 grams of carbohydrates because you're afraid it will kick you out of ketosis. You know, even though 8 grams of carbs shouldn't be an issue on a ketogenic diet, especially if you take it pre-workout. And, you know, the increased bioavailability of the oral steroids will push your workouts to the next level. Let's say you're a little bit hesitant. Then the CAMP PM fat loss formula by Gorilla Mind is a suitable replacement. 2 capsules will give you 300 milligrams of Naringin, which will yield approximately 30 to 45 milligrams of Naringenin, preventing the metabolism of 30 to 45 milligrams of oral steroids. Now, hesperidin might prevent the metabolism of dianabol into methyl estradiol or reduce it slightly. And of course, forskolin will increase androgen receptors, allowing this increased bioavailability of the oral steroids to have additional androgen receptors to bind to. Now, I prefer to take the CMP formula because it doesn't have stimulants, but if you like a little bit more fat loss on top of this increased bioavailability, the A2AM fat loss formula has a couple different stimulants which will take fat loss to the next level as well. So I would consider this one either before bed or during the off season when you're finishing off your, your strength cycle with a little bit of Anadrol. And I really hope that helps, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're looking for the most comprehensive guides for bodybuilding pharmacology, you can find those ebooks on my website, VigorousSteve.com/shop. If you're looking for personalized advice, you can find the rates and my services there as well in the services section. You can contact me through the contact form. If you're interested in one of those services, follow me on Instagram at VigorousSteve. That's also highly appreciated. Vigorous crew. I love you guys. You know what to do. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.